A Latina interpreter is drawn into a deadly ICE conspiracy when a mysterious detainee reveals she's an undercover FBI agent and the truth could cost them both their lives. Marisol Alvarez had worked as a certified Spanish-English interpreter. For nearly a decade, most of her assignments were in courtrooms, hospitals, or immigration offices neutral ground where her role was to bridge languages, not to intervene in anyone's fate. But lately, her work had taken a darker turn. For the past 2 months, ICE had contracted her services almost daily. She wasn't an ICE employee, just a freelancer, but the agency seemed to have her on speed dial. Most of the cases involved undocumented migrants from Central America, frightened people pulled from their homes or workplaces, many with no prior record. Something about the atmosphere at the ICE field office in Dallas was unsettling. The agents were colder than she remembered. Conversations often stopped when she entered, and once, she had overheard officers whispering about making a problem disappear before cutting the conversation short when they noticed hair in a gray Tuesday morning. She was called in for a high-priority detainee interview. The briefing officer, Special Agent Robert N., was tall, in his mid-50s, with an expression that always seemed 1 degree away from contempt. This one's different, he told her, handing her a thin file. Names Isabel Torres, no prior immigration record, no fingerprints in the system, yet she was found inside a restricted facility. She's refusing to answer questions without an interpreter. That's you. Marisol flipped open the file. The mugshot showed a woman in her mid-30s with dark, determined eyes and a calm expression, as if she knew something everyone else didn't. When Marisol stepped into the interrogation room, she felt the tension immediately. Two ICE agents sat behind a metal table, staring down. The detainee, Isabel, sat straight-backed, hands folded in front of her, completely at ease. Senora Torres, Marisol began, her voice steady, here to interpret for you. Everything you say will be translated exactly. Isabel's gaze shifted to her. Thank you, Marisol, she said in perfect Spanish. But before we start, do you know who you're really working for? Marisol froze. It was the first time a detainee had ever addressed her by name. Before she introduced herself, the ICE agents exchanged glances, asked her where she got that information, and said sharply. But Isabel smiled faintly. Some things you only find out when you're already inside. At that moment, Marisol realized this wasn't going to be a normal interview, and that Isabel Torres was not who she appeared to be. The agents kept pressing, but Isabel answered their questions with short, almost playful replies, forcing Marisol to translate meaningless sentences like maybe I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or I go where I'm needed. Marisol could tell Isabel was stalling, but what really unnerved her was how often the woman's gaze returned to her, not to the agents, not to the table, but to her. When the session ended and dismissed Marisol curtly, "You're done for now. We'll call you if we need you again," he said, ushering her toward the door. But as she passed Isabel, the detainee leaned slightly forward and murmured in Spanish, just low enough for the agents to miss it, "Don't trust them. Not everyone here is who they claim to be." That night, Marisol couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the day's events. How did Isabel know her name? Why would she hint at a warning? The next morning, she received a text from an unknown number. "If you want answers, check the case files from Operation Vega, but be careful who sees you." No signature, no context, but Operation Vega was a phrase she'd heard once before months ago. When two ICE agents passed her in the hallway speaking in hushed tones, she remembered it because one of them had said, "If Vega leaks, we're all done." Curiosity warred with common sense, but eventually, curiosity won. During her lunch break at the ICE office, she used an unoccupied desk terminal. The system was locked, but her interpreter login still had limited file access. She searched Operation Vega. Only one file appeared classified, but with a brief summary in the metadata. Her eyes widened as she read. Covert detainee transfers, non-standard processing, external contract timber. She could click deeper. A voice startled her, looking for something. "Ms. Alvarez." She turned. It was Agent N. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes cold. "Aya was just trying to find background for tomorrow's interviews." She lied quickly, Closing the screen, Haynes stepped closer, lowering his voice. Be careful, some files aren't meant for outsiders. You wouldn't want anyone to think you're involved in things you don't understand. That night, as she drove home, Marisol noticed headlights in her rearview mirror that stayed with her for miles. She took 3 different turns, even doubled back through a gas station, the same car followed. Finally, she turned sharply into a crowded shopping center and parked. The car rolled slowly past the driver, obscured by tinted windows. Marisol's hands trembled on the steering wheel. She realized Isabel's warning might have been more than paranoia. It might have been the truth. What she didn't know yet was that Isabel wasn't just a detainee. She was an undercover FBI agent, deep inside a case that could bring down multiple ICE officials. And now, without realizing it, Marisol was caught in the middle. 2 days later, Marisol was called back to the detention center. When she arrived, the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. Guards stood at every hallway corner, their eyes following her as if she were the one under investigation. Haynes wasn't there this time. Instead, another ICE agent, short, muscular, and tense, greeted her. Interpreter Alvarez. You're with Torres again, let's go. When they entered the interrogation room, Isabel looked different. The calm confidence was still there, but there was a flicker of urgency in her eyes. The agent began questioning her about her movements. Before arrest, Isabel gave short answers, and Marisol translated. But halfway through, Isabel said something that wasn't part of the questioning. Spanish. She whispered, "They're watching both of us now. I need you to listen carefully." Marisol kept her face neutral, translating the official part of the sentence for the agent while processing what Isabel had just said. Then Isabel leaned forward and spoke again in Spanish, soft but deliberate. "My name isn't Isabel Torres. I'm Special Agent Elena Morales, FBI. I'm undercover investigating a network inside ICE tied to illegal deportations and trafficking." Marisol's pulse spiked. She forced herself to keep translating the unrelated English questions so the agent wouldn't notice her shock. "I didn't plan to involve you," Isabel continued in Spanish, "but you're already in their files. They think you've seen too much." The ICE agent in the room narrowed his eyes. "What's she saying?" "She's just answering your question about where she was detained." Marisol lied smoothly. Elena's gaze locked on hers. "If you want to survive this, we have to work together. When they transfer me, that's when you'll make your move." The agent abruptly ended the session, telling Marisol she could leave, but as she walked toward the exit, a guard intercepted her and handed her a small envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper with 4 words written in block letters. "Stop asking about Vega." Her hands shook as she crumpled it in her bag. That night, she paced her apartment, torn between fear and anger. If what Elena said was true, she wasn't just an interpreter anymore. She was a liability to people who played by their own rules. At midnight, her phone buzzed with another unknown text. "Transfer scheduled tomorrow, 9:15 a.m. Warehouse on Carson Street." No signature, no explanation, but she knew it was from Elena. Marisol didn't sleep. She knew showing up might put her in even more danger, but staying home meant leaving Elena. And the truth behind the next morning, the August heat in Dallas was already heavy. As Marisol parked 3 blocks from the Carson Street warehouse, she'd chosen an old sedan she rarely drove, hoping it would draw less attention from a distance. The warehouse looked abandoned, faded paint, boarded windows, but 2 black SUVs were parked outside, engines idling. She recognized the ICE insignia on one of them, barely visible in the morning glare. Marisol sat low in her seat, watching. At exactly 9:15, the side door creaked open. 2 ICE agents escorted Isabel. No, Elena out in handcuffs, even in custody. Elena's head was high. Her stride purposefully loaded her into the second SUV, not the one with the ICE logo. That struck Marisol immediately. Why would a detainee be transported in an unmarked vehicle? She pulled out her phone and started recording from a distance, zooming in on license plates, faces, anything she could capture. It's when she noticed him, agent, and stepping out from the shadows of the warehouse. He wasn't in uniform, just a dark polo shirt and jeans. He glanced around before climbing into the passenger seat of the unmarked SUV. Every instinct told her to leave, but something in Elena's warning echoed in her mind. "When they transfer me, that's when you'll Make your move. The SUVs pulled away. Heading toward the highway, Marisol started her engine and followed. Keeping several cars behind, she was sweating not from the heat, but from the pounding adrenaline. After 15 minutes, the convoy exited. Toward an industrial area, far from any detention center, they stopped behind another warehouse. This one even more isolated. Marisol parked a block away and slipped out. Hugging the side streets, she could see the men getting out, opening the SUV where Elena was held. One of them spoke into a radio. His tone clipped and urgent. She crept closer, ducking behind a stack of wooden pallets. From here, she could hear fragments of conversation. No official paperwork. Take her inside. Plane leaves in an hour. Then Elena's voice, sharper now. You know the bureau's onto you, right? You think you'll get away with this? A sharp slap cut her off. Marisol's stomach twisted. She pulled out her phone and hit record again, capturing audio. This time she had to get proof enough for the FBI, for the press, for someone to take this seriously. A hand clamped down on her shoulder. Ms. Alvarez. A voice drawled behind her. It was, and his grip tightened as he pulled her into the open. Looks like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. The other agents moved toward her, but before they could reach her, Elena made her move. She twisted her cuffs forward, slammed an elbow into one guard's ribs, and shouted, "Run, Marisol!" Now, chaos erupted. One agent drew his weapon, another lunged for Elena, and Marisol bolted toward the street. Heart hammering, she didn't stop until she reached her car, fumbling with the keys. She could hear shouts and the screech of tires. Behind her she sped away, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her. Alavesh had proof now, but so did they. They knew she'd been there. Marisol drove straight to the only place she thought might be safe, a crowded coffee shop near downtown. She parked where her car was visible from inside, sat at a corner table, and pulled out her phone. The audio file was crystal clear. And voice, the talk about no official paperwork, the slap, and Elena's warning about the bureau. She sent this to the wrong person. She'd vanish before sundown. If she did nothing, Elena would disappear. Instead, her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time, it was a text with just 2 words. Trust Morales. Her pulse spiked. Elena's real last name. The sender had to be Fish. Typed a quick reply. Where? 30 seconds later. Union Station. 20 minutes. Look for the blue scarf. Marisol left her coffee untouched and drove, checking her mirrors constantly. No tail, at least none she could see. Union Station was bustling with commuters. She scanned the crowd until she spotted a tall black woman in a suit, a royal blue scarf draped around her neck. The woman caught Marisol's eye and gave the tiniest nod. Ms. Alvarez, she asked when Marisol approached. Yes, Marisol said cautiously. Special Agent Dana Price. FBI. Morales told us you might have evidence. Do you? Marisol pulled out her phone and handed it over. Price plugged a small device into the charging port and began downloading the files. This is enough to start the takedown, Price said quietly, but we need you to testify. Morales is still in their custody. If we move too soon, they'll relocate her off the grid. If we wait too long, they'll vanish both of you. Marisol's throat tightened. What happens if I say no? Then we'll have to work with what we have, and you'll be advised to disappear for a while. New name, new state, but if you testify, we can end this fast. Before she could answer, a commotion erupted near the street entrance. 2 men in plainclothes, ICE agents, she guessed, were scanning the crowd. One of them was Haynes. Price didn't hesitate. She grabbed Marisol's arm. Time's up, you're with me. They moved quickly through a side exit to an underground garage, where 2 black sedans were waiting. Price ushered her into one and slid in beside her. This isn't over, Price said as they pulled out. We're hitting the Carson Street site tonight with your testimony. We'll put them away for good that night. From a secure hotel room, Marisol watched live news footage. FBI and federal marshals swarming the warehouse. Agents in handcuffs. Boxes of files and hard drives carried out. She spotted Elena Free now being led into a black SUV, giving a small nod toward the camera. Aspress called her an hour later. It's done. N and his crew are in federal custody. Operation Vega is over. Marisol exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. And me, you'll have protection until the trial. After that, Your life is yours again, but understand these people had friends in high places. It may never be truly safe. Marisol hung up and stared out the hotel window at the city lights. She'd never asked to be a hero, but when the choice came to stay silent or speak, she'd chosen the truth. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. She didn't know if they were for her enemies or her future, but one thing was certain: Marisol Alvarez was no longer just an interpreter. She was a witness, and in this city, that was both a burden and a weapon.